Worship Center kids, I hope you have had an epic week. Do you know what I mean when I say epic? Well, epic means something huge, amazing, awesome. Well, maybe this week hasn't exactly been epic for you, but I'm sure that you have experienced times in your life that have been epic. I have a story about one in my life. See, it was Christmas time, and boy, did I have a surprise for my kids. I had made a puzzle in 3 pieces, 1 piece for each of my kids, and I wrapped it up for them. Christmas morning came, and I think I was way more excited than they were, but they didn't know what was coming. I did. So, Christmas morning comes, and when the time was right, I handed them each their special present. Well, they tore into that present and they opened it up and they went to work putting the puzzle together. Now, I know what you mean, what you're thinking. You're thinking, how in the world can a 3-piece puzzle be so exciting? Well, it wasn't actually the puzzle itself that was exciting. It was the message on the puzzle. They put that puzzle together and the message said, "Pack your bags, we are going to Disney World." Disney World, right? The puzzle was put together for them as a surprise to go see a mouse. I know, all 3 of them were so excited. Man, that was really an epic time. It was huge, it was amazing, it was awesome. Well, we are starting a series this week about epic stories in the Bible. Now, these stories are so big, so much bigger than a trip to go see a mouse. Well, today's story happens in the Old Testament, back in Exodus. Now, let me tell you, this story starts out with a whole nation. So there's a lot of characters, right? It starts out with a whole nation that cried out to God. Well, something had to happen for them to be crying out to God. So there used to be a great man. But at the beginning of this story, he's just a shepherd. I know you probably think I'm talking about David. However, I'm talking about Moses. Moses, at one point in his life, was a great man. He had everything you could imagine that he wanted. He had power, he had money, he had fame. But he left it all, and in this story, he's just a shepherd. So he's sitting out on a rock in the heat, watching his sheep. And he sat down to take a drink. Well, something catches his eye. What catches his eye is a bush that is on fire, but it wasn't burning. He rubs his eyes and blinks and looks again, and sure enough, it's on fire, but it's not burning. And then a voice comes from the bush, and it says, "Moses, take off your shoes, for you are standing on holy ground." A talking bush? The bush then says, "I am God, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Moses knew then that this was the God of his ancestors. Moses begins to hide his face because he's scared. He's hiding his face in fear. God tells him that he wants Moses to go back to where he came from, back to Egypt. And Moses had a very important job to do. It was to free the Israelites from slavery. God had heard their cries, and he was sending help. He was going to send their deliverer. Moses was scared. You see, he had a stutter, and he didn't think that he was up to the job. God told Moses that he would be with him and that he would tell him what he needed to say. So, here goes a regular shepherd off to confront the most powerful man. Moses let Pharaoh know that there will be plagues on the land if Pharaoh doesn't let the people go. Plagues of frogs and gnats and flies and sicknesses to the livestock and boils that covered their skin, and then darkness over the whole land. But Pharaoh kept saying, no, your people are my slaves and they're not going anywhere. Then the final plague, which was the worst. The final plague was where the firstborn of all Egyptians died. Pharaoh finally relented and he let the Israelites go. But the story doesn't stop there. You see, as the Israelites were leaving, Pharaoh had a change of heart, and he brought his army to pursue, to go after those Israelites and bring them back. Now, here the Israelites are standing on the banks of the Red Sea. All that was in front of them was water. No boats. They had no boats or rafts. They couldn't swim it. All that was standing in front of them was water. And now an army was coming after them. Moses tells them all to not fear because God is getting ready to do something epic. A pillar of fire falls, and it falls after the Israelites, but before the Egyptian army. And it keeps the Egyptian army from getting them. Well, then Moses holds forth his hands, and the water parts. And it parts on to where the Israelites can walk through on dry land. When the last of them stepped onto the shore on the other side, the pillar of fire disappeared and the Egyptians were able to continue their pursuit. So where did they go? They started walking through where the water had been parted. But the water starts to crash down on them and it destroys Pharaoh and his army. The Israelites are saved, and now they can begin to worship God because of what he did for them. God showed his power, and he freed his people just as he said he would. We should worship God. We should worship God because of what he did for the Israelites. Now, I know you're saying, man, that's a really cool story, Miss Brandy, but how does that have anything to do with why I worship God? Well, the epic stories that happen in the Bible, that we can read about in the Bible, can still happen today. Now, we might not see the waters part or a pillar of fire come down or even see a bush that's burning without getting lit up. But we can see God work amazing miracles in our life, and we should continue to worship him because he's the only one worthy of that worship. You know, God is the only one worthy. He's the only one powerful enough to get our worship. The Israelites learned about this in such an epic way, and they worshiped him. Worship is very important, and it should be to only God, no one else. So let me show you a minute. I brought some leftovers here. I brought some week-old taco meat. There might be something growing on it. I'm not even going to open it because the sight would not be pretty. And I know you can't smell it, but if I smell it, it's not going to be pretty. And then in this bowl, I have pudding that was made with soured milk. Doesn't sound too appetizing, does it? So what if I found out that somebody super important was coming to dinner? What if I found out that like Pastor Jason and Pastor Melissa were coming to dinner? Super excited. I would want to make sure my house was clean. I would want to make sure I cooked something really good. But what if I pulled out this week-old taco meat that might be a little furry and my curdled pudding? Do you think that that would be something worthy of giving them? No, it wouldn't. I would want to serve them something fresh that is not stale or growing bacteria. You know, that's not how any guest should be treated, especially guests that are important to us. Shouldn't we give them our very best? The same thing could be said with worship. You know, whenever it comes time to worship God, and really any time is a time to worship God, we should give our very best. You know, in Worship Center Kids, a lot of times, whenever our worship time is coming, I always say, we need to stand up. That's our one rule, to stand up. And I get a whole lot of, I don't want to stand up. Well, let me tell you, God is worthy of our worship. Only Him. He is the only one that should be worthy of our worship. And you know, I see that we go to games and we can stand up and we can cheer, but when it comes time to worship God, we want to sit down. Well, I have often said, well, God didn't sit down on you this week, so we do not get to sit down on God. We worship God. We worship God because really, He is the only one that is truly epic. I'll see you guys later. Have an epic week. Bye.